or don't.
Right.
I never do. Oh dear. And you never know what's going to emerge, which is the topic. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spotlight you, Sharon, for everyone. There we go, everyone. So, is everyone cool? Because Sharon's doing this en plein air. So, in other words, no slides or anything like that. And the 20 minutes is over to you.
All right then. So I'm happy to be here talking on the subject that is very dear to my heart, and it's like preparing for the unknown. So there's like good news and bad news. The the bad news is haha you can't, and the good news is sure you can. And so the I guess the thing I go by for everything is don't put all your eggs in one basket. And as soon as, especially in this era, that is the mantra. And it used to be before where you do one plan and then you just do it and you see through it, especially in the tech industry. It's like, don't build a parachute, don't build a plan B, just do it. And it's like, whoo, in this era, that's pretty risky. And that's not just at work, that's in our private lives as well. So essentially, it's a practice of building something, and I say building, setting something up in a structure, whether it's professional, whether it's a project, or your personal life. It's create something with a structure that is flexible enough that it can withstand a hit. This is the name of the game in this era. It was the name of the game in the eras before, but nobody was playing by that. And then everybody, would just be agonizing and blaming. There's a lot of blame and shame that goes around for that. But if we build for resilience, create for resiliency, then it's like we can pretty much handle anything, and we're pretty much ready for everything. My mom used to talk a lot about, as I was growing up, she would talk a lot about positioning and kind of the Asian concept of positioning. And so I took that to heart and I sort of use it in everything. So I'm always ready, but it doesn't mean everything goes exactly how I want it. But it's also the thing, part of the thing is setting our expectations. Because if we set our expectations in concrete at a really high level on one thing, man alive, the chances of hitting the goal and not being disappointed on any count is very slim. So my thing is like, why do that to ourselves? And there's a thing you have to know about me is that with dyslexia and my different cocktail ingredients in my cocktail of neurodivergence, I'm very lazy. And a lot of times people they say about people with dyslexia is that we can figure out a million ways to get around things and to make things easier. And so this is kind of the applied thing to life, projects, contracts, you name it. But that all has to do with resiliency and kind of building into the structure of, or creating the structure of flexibility. And so it's sort of like the preparation of that. It's like, ooh, what could happen? Which is sort of the improv game of like, oh no, what could be worse? Where one person says something, horrible that's going on. I went ice skating and then, but I forgot my ice skates. And then the next person says, oh no, what could be worse? And they pick it up and they go on with the story and they keep coming up with these horrible, horrible things. But it's like flexing a muscle. And so flexing our creative muscles of And I don't mean doom, like doom, doom scrolling or doom looping of it, but just kind of like, huh, I wonder what would happen if. And I always kind of put it in the ridiculous, like, you know, if the zombies attack, or when the zombies attack, not if, but when the zombies attack, you know, I will have wished I had done this. So if we sort of play with it and keep people talk about a learner's mindset. This is important, but I think what's also super important is a playing mindset and being open to just looking at things in from a ridiculous perspective, um, because it opens us up to more unusual solutions, and it breaks us out of the rigidity of, you know, what we should do, what we must do, what we have to do. And it's like, okay, you can come up with some really cool plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E if you need it. You might not need it, but they're there and you've already thought about them. The woman who is Jane McGonigal, who wrote Imaginable, and she teaches this, and she's amazing. And she teaches people how to practice imagining, and you practice all over the map. We call that in. I have my wife races motorbikes, and so what they do is when they practice, they go out in the practice sessions and they drive all over the track, because you never know when you're going to be over there. When you're in a race, it's impossible to stay on a perfect trajectory. So you have to have run up on the edge and kind of in the grass. And so you just run all over the track and in all different areas as much as possible in the trainings, so that in the heat of battle of a race, you're not thrown off. If you edge off the track, you don't panic. And it's the same thing in life. And it with projects and everything. It's the positioning and the awareness and the practicing of the unknown, so we're not afraid of the unknown. This is yeah, that's the base of everything, in terms of um, strengthening the resilience muscle and practicing having, like, where can I look if things get difficult? What is something that I can either come up with, but it's also not just for myself, but how we model and ourselves, not just for ourselves. It's how do we model calm for those around us, for people in leadership positions, because if we like lock up, then the people around us will mirror our anxiety and panic. And so it's like, so it's not just for me, it's important to be able to model the resiliency and the flexibility and the open-mindedness of of any situation. So when everything, again, I see a lot of people plan for just when everything runs smooth, and they're not planning for when everything turns to shit. Because generally speaking, it always will at some point. Might not be catastrophic, but yeah, it's like we better have thought of that. And it's always a great thing when I see groups actually practicing this, and I see business owners actually practicing it and modeling that. Yeah. So that is my recommendation is to I don't know, I know they have an audio book now for the book Imaginable. It's phenomenal. Jane McGonigal is really ahead of her time and trying to help solve a lot of the world's problems. And so that's, like, I would say, my first recommendation. And the other thing, I like listening to a lot of comedians and stand-up. because just how they think on their feet and their perspectives on life and everything, I find very useful. And the improvisational, now most comedians, they're very practiced and they go out and they do a set, but still the ones I find fascinating are the ones that do that and they can pivot. They can do crowd work. I find that fascinating. There's one woman that I heard just yesterday that I like her. I pulled her name up. Her name is Zarna. Hold on, Zarna Gard, and I'll give the links so you guys can look. There's two of them. One is her. It's like 30 minutes, I think, of her stand-up comedy, and the other one where she does a talk at Google for an hour. And I was just loving it. I'd never seen that. I'd never seen the Google talk, and so I listened to that yesterday, and I was loving it because she was saying the same thing about resiliency. She talks about everything, but towards the end, she really gets into the part about how we set ourselves up. I don't say for success because that just sounds so, in this day and age, it's such a buzzword, be successful. But the thing is, be resilient. And she talked a lot about that. Be resilient, be flexible, but practice it. Yeah. So it's the same message, same things that I talk about. And I loved it. And she was speaking about how she got into doing comedy. And she's an Indian woman with a family, and she's amazing. And so she started the business because it's full on as a business, as a stand-up, because her husband lost his job. And she said, okay, I guess I'm going to do this now. And she really got into it and did it very methodically. And I love her because it's like, never say never, that type of mindset, because you just don't know. We don't know what we can do until we try. So that is the beginner's mindset, but it's also the playful mindset. And if we allow it to touch everything that we do, it's like life is richer. Life can be a lot richer, a lot less, I would say rigid, not less of a kind of a panic thing of like, well, what can I do? What can I do? And how can I prepare? Because if we are always practicing that, we're always in the act of preparing. And yeah, I'll leave you with that. That's about 20 minutes. I can't believe that. 20 minutes.
A bit less than that, but no, it's really interesting stuff. Oh, by the way, don't worry about all the links. I've been throwing them into the chat while you've been talking about them. So I've actually put Jane's website in there, your LinkedIn, and also Zana's Google Talk. I've shared that too, which is really great. So I think one of my questions is what do you think was the biggest pivot for you that you weren't expecting? How did you facilitate what emerged in that situation for you?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
In what situation?
Well, what was one of the biggest pivots you've had to make, do you think?
Okay. The one that just absolutely popped into my head, because it changes. It depends on what day you ask me. The one that was the most profound was when my mom died around 2008, and I didn't understand how much of I knew she was my mentor. Okay. I knew she was important, and I did I was her apprentice in a lot of things. That's how I got into the training and the coaching. But I just, yeah, until you lose somebody like that, you don't really realize how pivotal, or how much of an influence somebody has in your life like that. And so I speak a lot about her in the present tense, because to me, she's still here. She's everywhere. She's very godlike. She's a goddess. And but it's I almost have a feeling now that it's like, oh, I have a responsibility to carry on her legacy, kind of, yeah, to carrying on the open-mindedness and the sense of play, and all of these things that she instilled in me. And so the pivotal moment, it took a bit to realize that it's like, wow, talk about putting all your eggs in one basket. I mean, I had different contacts and friends and connections, but I didn't understand the thing about that I really, as a mentor, it was like she was everything to me. And so I can't, there's not one person. I've had to create, like, a number of people. And that's an amazing lesson to learn, is like, okay, who are we surrounding ourselves with? And I wasn't isolated just when I had my mom by any stretch of the imagination. But I mean, she just covered all these bases because she was so amazing. And so now it's spread out. So now I have, and I found out that it's actually co-mentoring, because that's what she and I were doing also. She wasn't like one up, one down, and I do the same thing. But it was the building my orbit of critical people around me.
Yeah,
that was a very, very pivotal. Thank you for putting that back like
that. You're welcome. I think that's a fabulous example. It really is, of where one person can sometimes mean so much, and I've seen it the opposite way, where it's devastated the person to the point where they can't function, because they don't understand how to move through or to do what you've done in creating that orbit. I have a request just before we go on with open for discussion from Lisa, because Edward, you know what's coming already. Chat. You're so gorgeous. So what we do now is we've got our bus photo. So anyone that, if you don't want your face on it, by all means, turn your camera.
Somebody just dropped. That's funny. It was just a change. All right, guys, in 3, 2, 1. Got it.
Got it.
Cool.
Okay, that's our bus photo for this week's post. Whoever, probably I'll end up doing it if you like, Lisa. No, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry. As soon as I can get rid of this pesky client and not have to be in this 9:30 stand-up, work is really getting in the way of my fun.
So does that mean I have to stop recording now, or I should leave that on the recording?
You can leave it. They would think that's funny.